And she told me what the song meant to her. And she was saying in 1970 about this song, it's saying, "The woman in the East, I can hardly hear your voice." And I was wondering why she was saying it in that way. And after years of following my culture and all the things that I experienced, I understand that now. And when I was a young man, about 24 years old, I came out of the armed forces with a lot of attitudes and behaviors. And my auntie, Edna Manitowabi, put me to the side and gave me the grandmother's story. And the grandmother's story talks about the water, okay? Talks about the earth, talks about the moon, and it talks about Anishinaabe how sacred they are, how they are the carriers of that life, that water. And I remember that as clear as a day because when she came, she um, she asked me for a glass of water, and I put it in front of her, and she asked me, "What is this?" And I said, "A glass of water." Okay. Then she gave me the grandmother story. She told me how the women pray for that water, talk for that water, sing for that water. And when she gave me this, I was wondering, why is she telling me this? Okay? And she finally says, "I don't like your attitude towards women. You have to know our women." And after the next day, someone came knocking at the door, and I opened the door, and it was Art Solomon. And he asked me to be his Gabewis and go with him and go to the prisons in southern Ontario. We went to Millhaven, Joyceville, Wentford, Collins Bay. And the last day we were there, we went to the POW, which was the prison for women in Kingston. And as I was carrying his sacred items in, when we were walking down the hall, and we could see the cell, and we could see all the Native women in that institution waiting for Art. And I turned to Art and I said, "What is that?" He said, "What's what?" "That feeling. I'll tell you later, but you are to go and talk to all those women." And when I did talk to them, they told me why they were there. They were there because they lived in fear for how they were living in their homes, in their lives, in their communities, with their relationship with their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles, their partners, their boyfriends, and what they were doing to them. So on the way home, Art says, "So now, do you know what that feeling was?" And I said, "If I did not get the teaching before I came down here, the grandmother's story, it's the sacredness of all our women. Our women do not belong in jail, in prison, in institutions." And I didn't hear that song that my mother sang when I first came home, that the women in the East, I can hardly hear your voice. Because we understand in the East, our women are that doorway in which our spirit comes into this realm. Okay? She carried us for 9 months, prepared that vessel. And when we came into this world and took our first breath, and understanding that, and that is that's quite some time ago. That's 50 years ago. And what had transpired in that time, I started to get influenced by my mom, by my aunties. Then I got influenced by my partner and my daughter. And they are so important to my life. They are my family. And I hear the story about the missing and murdered Aboriginal woman. And you hear what has happened to them, missing and murdered, the violence they're gone through. And yet they're still missing. and still a problem within our communities. So when I hear this going on about the missing murdered Aboriginal woman, it's because a lot of our women lost their identity of who they are and the sacredness that they are. That our women's voices got weak, eh, and now it's starting to rise, and the women voices are starting to get strong, and we're starting to hear what our women are saying. And so that influenced me for the work that I've been doing. I just retired just before Christmas from non-women child family services, and trying to bring our worldview, our ceremonies into the work that we do as trying to help our children, eh, our youth, our families, our men and women to understand our roles and responsibilities, and how do we use our culture in social work? How do we use our culture in developing our laws that are embedded in our ceremonies, in our culture? And we are starting to rise, and the women are sounding their voices because they are the center of our families. They are the center of our communities. They are the center of our nation. They are the center of our lodge. And understanding that I am a Shkabe, a helper. And one of the things is that we need to turn around and look back where we come from, look at our ancestors and see their lives and how they saw this creation and how they connected to this creation and how they lived within this creation. Then they saw all that, and it inspired us. And in spirit, we're spirits living a human life, not the other way around. We're spirits. And when we start our teaching here, you'll start to hear how that started in spirit. So the influence that we have, eh, and you see the first Native studies was at the University of Sudbury at Laurentian University in 1967, started by Dr. Newberry and Art Solomon. And they hired a young man, and his name is Jim Dumont. And that was the first Native studies in Canada. And you see the influence that they have, and the influence that my elders, Edna, Liza, and my mom, had towards women. And we've been on a healing journey because of the things we endured, the history, the acculturation, the assimilations, all those policies that were oppressive to us and still are there today. But it is us that will determine our future. We will find the strength to make change. It might take some time, but we have to find that in ourselves that we're doing this for our future, for our children, our grandchildren, and our great grandchildren, so that they have an understanding of what this life, this time is all about. So this spirit's journey will express how the spirit is to experience the seven stages, the seven relationships, the ceremonies that happen within those times. And you look at us as a Anishinaabe people, that's truly who we are. I'm not an Indian. Oh, by the way, I'm not an indigenous person. I'm not a First Nation person. It's because I am an Anishinaabe. I've always been. That those other names are not of our language, not of our interpretation. And being an Anishinaabe, when I first heard that, my grandfather, my great grandfather, he was 92 years old in 1964. And you do the math, see when he was born. And he told me stories, and he told me legends, he called them. And this is one of the stories that I received from here. And it's called The Cycle of Life. And I forgot about it once. And I remember Not long ago, I went to they call it the church in Mississauga, just outside of Blind River. I went to church there and I seen a mural on the wall, and it was a painting done by Blake DeBosky, and it showed a baby connected to a spirit attached to the umbilical cord to the baby, and it showed that baby in the Tikanagan attached to the toddler to the mother, okay? And it showed uh, a youth fasting on a cliff, and it showed them paddling, two couples in a canoe, and it showed them wrapped up in a blanket at the end with an owl on top. It was then that I remembered what my great grandfather told me, and it was the cycle of life. I remember that because Blake DeBosky is actually my cousin, and we share a, a lot of things in our relationships. And so when I saw that, things changed for me. I was working at the treatment center in Blind River. I was the elder in resident. And my friends, I call them my friends today, and it was Lorraine Ponce and Sandra Southman, asked me to apply for Nogda-Windaman. And I did. And as I started working there, I asked if I could go to Lake of the Woods. And I went to Anishinaabe Benonji, which is in Kenora. Then I went to Winchinawins, which is in Fort Francis. And after I went there, I went to Wisconsin and Minnesota. And when I got back, my ED at that time was Rosalind Johnson. And she says, "So, what's up?" I said, "The journey begins." And our first journey was to ask the leadership, our chiefs, our health directors, that we go towards mandation and to go get designated. And they had a meeting, and they were hesitant. And one of the things they asked me if I could say something. And I said to them at that time that us Anishinaabe people, the Creator gave us our worldview, our ceremonies, our teachings, our roles and responsibilities. And what that comes, our children. Our children's welfare belongs to us, and we are to determine how that we're going to do this. And the chiefs granted us to go designation. Because our journey in what we are doing in child welfare has to change to suit our needs and our way of doing it. And we have to develop and grow. And it's going to take some time, but we got to find the strength and the determination and how we're going to do this, because it will be based on our laws, from our culture, our philosophy, and our ceremonies, our teachings, how we conduct and present ourselves, how we govern ourselves, okay? What is inspired from the Creator himself to our ancestors, to our elders, to us, and how we're going to pass it on to our children and their children, and that they will be strong and their voices will be strong. Our women will be strong. Our men will rise and they will be that protector, that helper that they were intended to be. So that's where we're going. And we all play a role in that. In Nogda-Windaman's development, it wasn't just one person. It was those grandmothers at the beginning who had a vision, to start something. Then the chiefs and the tribal council, how they put their vision and how they would do that. Then the committee that started that, and they got the name Nogda-Windaman. And if you think of Nog, the center, the women, you're looking at the thoughts, the center of your thoughts. So they always say, be mindful. And if you ever interfere in a child, you interfere in those thoughts. Okay? So one of the things we want to have our children to feel good about themselves, have their identity, their culture, their language. That is the foundations and how they will build the nation again. So as I sat and listened to this, as I sat and witnessed this, it all started with ceremony, with a song from my mom. And it gradually continued my teachings from my aunties. It was my Auntie Liza that supported me, encouraged me. She's the one that told my Auntie Edna to talk to me about the water. She is the one that told Art Solomon to take me as a Shkabe was because she's seen my path in the work that I would do. And I look at where we are today. We're starting to sound our voice. We're starting to look at our determination of how we're going to evolve and grow and develop, not just to survive, but to live again. Okay? And we learned a lot of things. Okay? We learned a lot of things in our journey in the last 200 years. And inside of us is that spirit has been aroused, and that spirit is giving us uh, the energy to do the work because we have our passion and compassion that's embedded in our culture. This story begins way back. Before you even came here, every one of us are a thought of the Creator. We are spirit. And He told our spirit that we had to go and experience this place that He prepared for us to experience. And He told us, where I'm sending you, okay, there's a there's a path there, a mikan, and that's a sweet grass path. And everything on that path, eh, you will find articles that will help you, eh, our sacred items that will help us eh, to keep strong. The, the whale gun, eh, shishiguan, puagan, eh, ishpote, how we make our fires, eh, how we talk for the water, how we do all these things. It's on that path. And it's a relationship to the spirit, but also to all the spirits in this realm. When you look outside, you see the sky world, and you see the different skies. It's a different spirit. You see that snow out there, bon meadow, spirit out there, winter out there. And you could feel the weather changing now, starting to warm up. So you're going to see Sigwen Kwe come up here, the spring woman, and bringing that new life. You're going to feel that. You're going to sense that. And you're going to feel that energy from where that comes from. And you're connected to that. So he told you everything. So as you started to leave the spirit, you turned around. And Anishinaabe turned around. Grandfather, it's beautiful here with you. I don't want to go. And he encouraged you to continue. And he said, everything is going to be okay. You have to go and experience this place. And you went and you turned around again. But grandfather, I want to stay with you. Hey, it's beautiful with you. I love being with you. And again, he encouraged you and supported you. Continue your journey. Hey. And you continued again. Then you turned around and you said, but grandfather, I can hardly hear your voice. So the Creator said to Anishinaabe, I will send a spirit that you could talk to, a part of me that I will send. And he sent a spirit, and some people refer as Mide Manado, a pure-hearted spirit. And through him, you could talk to me. And he will tell me what's going on with you and relate that message to you. So your spirit wandered. And at time of conception, your spirit chose your parents and went into the seed of life in your mother's womb. And as you were in the seed of life, and your vessel started to grow from your mother's substance, and your umbilical cord was attached to it, and you were eating what she ate, what she drank. And as your vessel grew, you were surrounded by that water, and you could hear the vibration of her heartbeat, and you were in tune to that, just like at the beginning of creation, that sound. And, and as your vessel grew, it was time for you to come into this world. When the water broke, you came. And the first thing you did when you came into this world is take your first breath. And then you sound your voice. And what they did is they cut the umbilical cord, wrapped it in a cloth, put it to the side. And they gathered all the placenta, put it to the side. And they gave you your first cedar bath. And once they completed that cedar bath, they wrapped you in a moss bag, which was a diaper long ago. And they would wrap you in a blanket and take you outside. And whatever creation unveiled itself at that time, that is the name that you receive. Or sometimes you receive your name from your grandparents because they're really connected to you spiritually. Before you came into this world, in the spirit world, you already had your name. And when you came into this world, they announced that name. So the first ceremony is the naming ceremony. Okay? And that name will carry you, carry your vessel in the spirit of this spirit is inside here. And this is the vessel, my body. And it's taking me on a journey. So once they bring me back in, they get the placenta together and they give it to the father. And he goes out and he makes a little fire and he makes a little hole and he's giving back because this life that came into him, that little child, that infant, that spirit, he's pledging that he will comfort this child, protect this child, mentor this child. And that's what he's acknowledging. That's what he's presenting. And he's saying it to everything in the universe that he will do this. And after he finishes fire, he comes back and he witnesses when they attach that child who's in a moss bag wrapped around in a blanket to the Tikanagan. And the Tikanagan is a tick, a tree, noggin, the bull. And that child is put in the skirt of that and tightened up. And that child looks like a gift. And you could sense the spirit of that child that's sitting in there. And that's when they tell you, be careful what you say and do in front of this little one because they're watching you and they're paying attention. They're listening. And they drill a hole in front of the bar that's in front. And that little hole is called a spider's eye. And that means you're going to see many significant things in your lifetime there. And that's when they put the dream catcher down. Okay? We didn't have windows. Okay? That's where the dream catcher was originally put in and talked for it, why it came, how it captures those dreams. So as that child is in that Tikanagan, the one that attends to this child is the mother. She feeds this little one, cleans this little one, washes, attends, sings, talks to this child, eh, giving that child a language to hear the sound of that language, singing. And she put it in a little thing to, to sing and soothe that child, to comfort that child. And that is that relationship. And the mother is the one that gives the first grandfather teaching love unconditionally, because that child comes from her and came from her substance, a connection. So that is the that Tikanagan. And in the Tikanagan, you stand it up in the kitchen as you do your dishes, as you cook. And when the father's outside making his canoe or making his articles, that child is watching, sitting out there. The spirit of that child is paying attention. And finally, that child comes out of that that Tikanagan, and they stay in the lodge. They never allow a toddler to crawl outside on the ground. They keep them in the house and they walk on the furs. And that child has a relationship with their father. If you ever notice a toddler, you come home, pick him up, and you comfort him, you hold him, and you put him back down. You see that child will point their toes down. Just like when Anishinaabe descended from the sky world, pointed his toes to land on the earth. You see our toddlers doing that. And that child is walking around or crawling around on that rug, finally stands up. And what happens is that this little one here is going to have their first steps. Today is the last day of February, and this is Makwagisis, the bear moon. And it has that name for a reason, and that is when the bears are having their little ones coming out of the earth, their den, and wash their little cubs in the snow and introduce us to creation. So we look at this, the welcoming ceremony. Okay? They introduce it to the earth. So that's what we do with our toddlers. When they take their first step, we call the family, the extended family, to witness this little one do their moccasin ceremony, where cedar is spread out and they put that child in the middle of that cedar, and wherever they walk off that cedar, that's where they buried the umbilical cord. Okay? So then that child who does this is grounded in who they are when they step onto their mother for the first time, okay? How they walk their life. Okay? So that's what is introduced at that time. And the relationship that toddler has is with the father. And the father is teaching their little one how to pass the salt, how to use their mannerism right away. So they have to learn respect and what that's about. Respect your mom, respect your father, respect. eh. And this is the time that you'll see them give them a smudge, and they will smudge, they will put tobacco. And so you're getting them started in doing that and preparing themselves. That's when that relationship with the father and the toddler is growing, because I used to see that. When I came home from work, my kids were always putting up their hands when I come through the door. I picked them up. And when I set them back down, back on the floor, they would point their toes, just like how Anishinaabe has always done that. And they say that the children that do this moccasin ceremony, They're made moccasins. Boys would make a nice vest. The girls would have a nice dress. And some people do it different. Some will have articles where they go pick them up. And so the moccasin ceremony is the welcoming ceremony. And we welcome every child in our families, community, in our nation, within our communities, to acknowledge that it takes a community to raise a child. And we have to ensure that that child is given the things that belongs to them, their right to the land, their right to their culture, their rights to their families, their rights to their teachings. Okay? So we have all these rights for them, okay? So that they could grow and evolve as an Anishinaabe person and understanding that identity of who they are and how they're connected, to the Creator, to creation, to the land. Okay? So those little ones finally started running around. You ever see that? You see children pick up toddlers, then you'll hear the grandparents and the parents say, "Put them down, put her down," because they're so close. So when you're in that childhood stage, you have a relationship with your grandparents, grandma and grandpa, and you know how they are, grandparents to the grandchildren. They love them because that's an extension of them. And they want to make sure that they're on the right path. And they want to make sure that they're getting the proper teachings of what it is to live this life. What governs them? Okay? Our ceremonies, our teaching. So they're given certain things. Is that the grandparents tell them stories because their imagination is so ready to be filled. And they'll sit there and listen to storytelling. They will listen to the story and they'll imagine what their grandparents are talking about. They would pretend, they would use that imagination. They will analyze. So one of the things that the little girls are given is a tikanaga with a doll. And they mimic their role eh, eh, of their mother. They pretend they're mothers. eh. The boys are given a little axe and bone arrow, and they mimic their father as being a provider, a protector. And they're, they're encouraged by their grandparents through storytelling of who they are and their relationship to the spirit of our families and community and nation, to all the things that are out there, the trees, the animals, the plants. They're given stories about that. They're given stories about their attitudes and their behaviors. And, this is a time of the year that they would talk about Wenabojo and mention his names and all the things that he experienced and done. They would talk stories about that. And they were teaching stories about attitudes and behaviors. And so grandparents play a big role in their grandchildren. And they want to make sure that they're on the right path. And when they get these teachings, they're so in awe. You'll notice that grandchildren always listen to their grandparents. Sometimes they'll listen to mom and dad, but they'll always listen to grandparents and will not eh, say anything bad towards them. They will say, okay, grandma says something, they do it. So in that relationship is the storytelling time. And in that time, they are told about their roles and responsibility getting ready. And it's through storytelling, imagination, and developing. So we look at they're about this high. Next thing you know, they're growing up so fast. And in this next stage here, okay, is they call it the adolescent time. Some people refer it as the puberty time. And this is when they are getting ready. They're making their transition from their childhood to their young adult life. And they are mentored. And the women And the young girls, when they first come into their moon time, they're very fast, is when they say and refer to the grandmother came to visit you for the first time. And they are given teachings about woman, the sacredness of woman, the earth, the grandmother moon, and how they cleanse your blood so that you will be always strong in the child. In the life that comes through you will always be strong. But they tell you how to look after yourself, how to cleanse yourself, how to fast on those berries, and what that really implies by doing the berry fast, or some people might say strawberry fast. And you are taught by the grandmothers, the aunties, and the women, and you are mentored, and you go fasting over those berries for 1 year. And when you complete your berry fast, at the end, they give you certain articles. The grandmothers will give you blankets, they will give you soap, and they will give you threads and things to help your creativity. They will help you in, in understanding the roles that you have, that you are the center of our large family and community, that sound your voice, always be kind, always know that you come from the earth and you model yourself after the earth. And the grandmother moon is always there every month to hear your prayers, your thoughts, and to give you guidance and strength of who you are. And that you are a woman with a heart, and you always talk about your heart, your intuition always comes from your heart, your spirit's intent. When you hear that, it brings significant meaning and purpose to your role. And as the young men, when they start to, their voice starts to change, they are taken by their uncles, grandfathers, and the men at, out on the hill, and they're going to go for their vision quest. In their vision quest, they are told that they had to attend their fire and understand what that means. They are going out there. How are they going to be one who attends the fire? How to find that understanding of what that fire really means? How to be that protector? How to comfort our families and communities to make them safe? That is their role. That they will even give their own lives to protect what is sacred to them. Okay? And they're taught that. And they stay out there till they have their vision quest. And it could be 4 days, could be seven. And that's when they first go out to vision. Even this present day, there's people taking them out way before that. That's their choice. But you are to take them at this time because in your teachings before, you're preparing them for this day to go out and fast, to do without water and food, that your spirit becomes more dominant in what you're doing, and you're asking, and you're meditating, and you're praying. They're teaching you that out there. Okay? You had those already from your grandmother, your dad, and your mom. They gave you those. Now, this is preparing you to receive what the Spirit is sending towards you and how you are to govern yourself, how you're to walk your life and your vision, and how you're going to work towards that. Okay? That's what that is all doing. And when you come out of that, hey, the one that helps you a lot is your uncles and aunties. They talk about that courage and how that courage, and it takes a lot of courage to go out there and stay there 4 days. In this present time, we have people who go out there in 2 days and they're committed to 4 days. They put their tobacco 4 days and they leave. So they're incomplete. They have to do it for 4 days. You're not going to die out there. But they're so weak that they say, oh, I have my vision. And if you ever hear about Shaman, Shaman was a medicine man. And in his vision quest, he went up in Dreamer's Rock and he fasted there. After 2 days, he saw that he was fighting the Anawe, which is the enemy. And he thought he was going to be a great warrior. So he went out And wherever he was, they brought him back. He was wounded. And his grandmother says, Shawanaswe, that is not your vision. You got to go complete that. So he went up there for 4 days, and they camped at the bottom to make sure he stays up there. After this, the 12th or 16th day, they went to look for him because he didn't come down. They couldn't find him. What had happened is that the sky world opened up, and down came the white thunderbird and took him into the sky world. And where he was taken was to the wars that were happening in our time, the Civil War. He went to the Great War, World War One. He went to the war in the desert. He went to the war in the jungle, and he came back. Again, the eagle or the thunderbird, white thunderbird, dropped him, and he descended down from the sky and landed in what they call Sunshine Alley. And that's he when he landed there. Those guys fishing there, they roll up and they pull him into the boat. They ask, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Shawanasi." You can't be. He's been gone for a long time. And he looked into the water and he saw his reflection. He was an old man. And he went back to his community, and his grandmother was still alive. Shawanasi, where are you? And he told her where he went. He went to different wars, and he's seen the different medicines that they use. And they gave him they call some people from the neighboring communities like Shigwenda and Shiging to come. They had people who needed medicine real bad because they were dying from. And he went out in the bush and that you see in the summertime, the the shoreline of Shigwenda was full of teepees, thousands of them in the in the in the 1800s, and that's what they were going. They were going to see Shingwauk in Shigwenda and getting their medicines. You see photographs of that. So when you hear that story and you hear the visions that we have, everyone here goes on a vision quest, a very fast. And it's connecting our spirit, and it's connecting to the spirit of to find the meaning and purpose of that, but also to feel it. Okay? When somebody says Ashnagegi, okay, they're really asking, how do you feel? Okay? We think they're saying, how are you? But how do you feel? And when you go say Chinenda, then they'll ask you, Anidish, how come? Okay? Well, how come you are so happy? Nin Sugini in Datsun, my daughter, you go to Laurentian University, she went there to Laurentian University and went to school and graduated. I'm so happy for her. She overcame all the things that were required, the studying, the stress and anxiety. eh, eh. So it showed her strength to overcome things. So you're proud of that. Everybody is proud of their children, okay? Because that's a connection. That's that spiritual connection, physical connection, mental connection, okay? Emotional connection all the time. We do that in our ceremonies. And a lot of the things I've told you, a lot of it came from the ceremonies that I attend, Medewan ceremonies. And in those Medewan ceremonies, I learned a lot of things by sitting there, listening, okay? Listening, hearing the teachings maybe 20, 40 times. And each time something else came, something else inspired me, something else was reminded of how I am to walk this life, to live this life, to share this life that I have with others. And my roles and responsibilities, I started to hear more, and I started to get stronger in my belief system. I started to feel good what it is to be a Anishinaabe. And I'm really proud of my ancestry and where I come from. I'm proud of Anishinaabe people for their resilience. I'm proud that we are now seeing that we need to come together. We need to start sharing our story so that our story gets stronger, and that we say, never will allow this to happen again, and we won't have missing and murdered Aboriginal women. We will don't have child welfare within our communities. We won't have drugs and alcohol, eh, and everything that comes with it in our communities and our families. We got lots of work to do, and we play our role and our responsibilities to a lot of things. I look at our chiefs, our leadership, and how they are they're advocates for all what we're talking about here, and that we need to develop, we need to be determined, and we need our leadership to be strong. That we're praying for them, we're petitioning the Spirit to watch over them, to make the right choices and decisions on behalf of us, but future generations down the road. Just like today, we look at what we're doing here. Our ancestors, 7 generations back, thought of us. So here we are in this present time. We have to think of 7 generations ahead. So one of the things, we're taught a lot of things in our culture, in our ceremonies, in our teachings. And we're reminded, our spirits are always reminded. And when I heard this, when I firmly heard this, um, as a spirit, you hear how the Creator, when He created the Anishinaabe, when you hear the little boy when in front of the 7 grandfathers, he looked into that vessel. And when he looked into that vessel, he saw everything that is, was, and everything that could be. In our mind, the Creator planted everything in the universe. And we know that to be true because when we hear the truth, I've always known that. Where did that come from? So we have the thoughts of the Creator. We are the thought of the Creator. And He made this place, this most beautiful place, in His dreams and His thoughts for our spirits to experience this. So when we experience this well, the Creator experiences as well. And He sees this. That's why He sent us here to live, to experience this. So when you hear about the youth, you hear how uncle and auntie helped you in your courage. And you hear about those relationships, like from the Anishinaabe, the non-Jains, the toddlers, the children, the boys and girls, Kwezes, Queezans. You hear about that. Then you hear about the transition and the the berry fast and the fast. You hear how all those ceremonies at that time, eh, come to feed our spirit, to feed our body, to feed our mental wellness, to feed our emotionals, our feelings. And today, in this present time, we have lots of things that concerns us. One of them is mental health. And when you hear about the suicides that are happening in our communities and how fast they grow, and this this life is a gift, and it came from the Creator, and I'm to honor this life, to experience it well and live it well. When you hear about a lot of our youth, uh, they talk about how we're to mentor them, to inspire them, to encourage them, and support them. And because a lot of our kids today are meeting bullying, eh? Whether it's on the computer, whether it's at school, eh? Just like you hear about girls, the girls, and they tell you are more vicious. I didn't know that till I was told that the girls there, they do a lot of bullying. And what does that do to someone who's being bullied? You lose confidence because there's a lot of fear in you. And that's not the intent that you were to experience that. So our teachings, our ceremonies help them. Okay? So as an Anishinaabe people, we have in our culture in our language, okay, our true language. When we speak in our language, we're really truly experiencing the spirit of us out. But now we're in this time where we weren't allowed to speak our language. I remember going to day school and chigging, getting a strapping for speaking Anishinaabe Moon on school property. And I'm a slow learner, eh? Because I went up there 4 or 5 times, eh? And when I was in row there getting a strapping there, and everybody's crying up ahead of me, I was scared. I was afraid, eh? And we weren't allowed, eh? We weren't allowed to speak our language. And my grandmother one day asked me, Anishinaabe, she'd say to me, what's wrong with you? I can see you don't seem to understand. Eh? I said, why go to school? And they told me not to say this language anymore. It's the devil's language. And I was getting strappings. I said, I got 6 of them in the last 3 months. What is what does that do to a child who's 8, 9 years old? Where was child welfare then? Eh? Eh? So you look at the way they treated children, a very sacred spirit in how they treated us. We've all experienced that on Turtle Island. We experienced a lot of things. And we had our ceremonies that helps eh, to make our understanding of our relationship to the spirit, to our mothers, to our fathers, to our grandparents, to our uncles and aunties. So we have lots of things that we need to do, ceremonies. And we learn that our tobacco is really significant to us. That's our prayers, our requests, our petition to the spirit. And, and we have ceremonies when they go to Sundance. We give tobacco. And we give tobacco to fast. We give tobacco to that tree of life. We give tobacco to that being that looks after that lodge and to give us guidance, strength, and courage. And that we're doing this to heal the things that we've experienced. And we're still growing again because a lot of our people have not accepted the culture. They think it's bad medicine. Even I got called makwa, komose, eh, which is a bear walker. And you know what? I am a bear. I'm a bear clan member. I'm always walking. So I am bear walker. But you look at how far we come, eh? Since we started doing, when we really started doing things, changed around? It was in 1965. We weren't allowed to go into beer store. We weren't allowed to go and vote. And where I lived at that time was in Chigging. And I seen they were getting ready for this big parade in Chigging. The Prime Minister was coming to Chigging. Lester Michael Pearson was coming. So my school that I was not far, it was just walking distance, a little white school in Chigging. The other school was in Lakeview. That's where grade 1 and grade 2 went. So it was when I was in grade 2, we went outside and I asked the teacher, can I go sit with my grandfather out there? My great grandfather Eli was sitting there, brown jacket on, brown suit. He had nice shoes, brown fedora hat. And, he made me feel proud that he's my great grandfather. And I went there and I said, Grandpa, you come to see the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, I said. He says, not my Prime Minister. I never voted for him. And I was wondering why he said that, eh? How come you say that, Grandpa? He says, I didn't vote for him. We're not allowed to vote. And at that time, when I seen the RCMP coming marching down all in their red suit, and behind them was Lester Pearson, and he addressed eh, the chiefs there, and he says, "You have a right to vote." That's what they told him. And my grandfather, he says, "Yeah, that's what they say, eh, but you'll always have a problem." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "They refer to us as Indians, and they don't say nice things about us. They're always afraid of us, scared of us. Eh, well, we haven't done nothing to them." And he said these things. And he told me something that really struck me years later. He says, in 1967, a year after 1968, my grandfather passed away. But he said something. And he said, "You know, Misha," he's speaking in the language, he said, "you're going to witness something. They're going to witness our people emerge and wake up. You're going to see things. You're going to play a part, a small part. And if everybody plays their small parts, we will get where we need to go. And that is to work for our people, look after our children, address our youth, and inspire them. Don't criticize them, inspire them, and mentor them, and give them things they are connected to." He told me that. And he said, we will we will light a fire. And in 1969, in Barriga, Michigan, they lit their fire for the modern day Medewan, Eddie Benton, Jim Dumont, Porky White. And, and when they first came home, they were chased off the reserve. "Don't bring that voodoo stuff here." Okay? And it took a lot of determination for them to stick what they are. Even me, I when I came back into the armed forces, and I seen them in their commune community of St. Charles, because Jim and Edna were flower children. Commune, and I seen that, but my auntie wanted me to come home, and she wanted me to stay there, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I believe in. All I could care about was drinking, okay? Partying every weekend. Then I sat there and listened in the lounge, helping my little cousins there, Shakwat, Gisons, okay? Wabanon, Chibak, my little brothers and sisters. And I would sit there and help them teach at school. Okay? And it inspired me. My auntie inspired me, my aunties, my uncles, okay? My grandfathers. So I learned a lot of things. That I learned that my grandmother, her name was Annie Bisson, but her maiden name was Annie Dabosky. And in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, she was a midwife and she knew medicines. Then I finally met people who she delivered in this world. One of them was, his name was Mike Brown. He was the MP for the legislation of Ontario. He told me, "Your grandmother brought me into the world." Then John Ogoni, "Your grandmother brought me into this world." And she would travel. So she inspired me, the work that she did in being a midwife. And you look at our lineage. I'm a descendant of Midawabi, and I'm a descendant of Bisne. I'm a descendant of of a chief, a Medewan, who came from Drummond Island. That is my great grandfather. And when I hear those stories of my ancestry, I'm proud. I'm proud of my lineage. I'm proud of my culture, my language. I'm proud of my history. Eh, I'm proud to be an Anishinaabe again. Where when I was in my early teens, I was ashamed. Eh? And there was a lot of stereotyping about Anishinaabe. Eh? Wagon burners, what the heck's that? Yeah, when we watch TV, Bonanza or Gunsmoke, when they have fighting with the Indians, guy just shoots and about six of them fall off the horse. Eh? Seeing this, that when I was a young boy in Chicken, when we played cowboy and Indians up in the bluff, I had to play the Indian part because I was the youngest. I always played the Indians. When they say you shot, you're dead. Had no choice. Because the Indians always died. Eh? So we were made to feel ashamed of ourselves. When I look back at my leadership, my family, way back, how they were people of nobility. They were kind. They were diplomatic. They were courteous. They had skills that we don't have today. And we have to go back there because that will give us the strength, okay, to overcome the obstacles that are in front of us. And one of our big obstacles now is ourselves. Okay? So one of the things I wanted to go this halfway and continue this after have a break. I remember the first time I heard that song and was shared by Dan Pine, and it was the wild harvest that they had here in Garden River. And I went to this ceremony that they had at the powwow grounds there, and I went with elder brother that I call, and who was one of my first teachers was Jim Dumont, and um, and he came out with this song, and he explained what the song was saying. Let's get up and go. A new dawn is approaching. Let's not go back to sleep. And today, in present time, people refer to that as a prophecy song. But it was, in reality, a lullaby. When you get up in the morning, you sing that to your child, eh, in the morning when we got up. And when I remember hearing that first time, he explained it. And he explained how Shingwauk's vision and him, how he felt his dad being the last of the hereditary chiefs. And it shed a lot of light and on my path, my journey, that a new time has approached. And I looked at my youth when I was a teenager. Something was happening, and that was the civil rights movement in the States. And my auntie Liza, she used to work on the Great Lakes boats, and she went to Chicago. In Chicago, they had a powwow there, so she bought me something there, and she brought it home. And I looked at it, and it was a record by Floyd Westernman. And I listened to all the songs there. There were songs like Custer died for your sins, eh? Missionaries, missionaries, leave God and leave us alone. We got a God of our own. It was songs like that. And when you're a teenager, you're wondering why they're singing this. And when I looked at it and heard the lyrics, I said, I wonder why he feels like that. Then a book came out. It was called Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee. So I read that book, And because I got it from my auntie, she was in a book club, and she read one page. She says, "I can't read this. You want this?" And I read it. And when I read it, I felt myself anger. I felt myself searching for answers. Why are we treated this way? Okay? And as I continued, I went with my cousin. His name was Ronnie Wokugishik, and he was the chief of our reserve at that time. And he went to the ever first Assembly of First Nation meeting in Winnipeg, and I went with him, and it shed a lot of light uh, on where we need to go. And if you ever went to things at that time, I don't hope I don't offend anyone, but it was like a big party, eh? And people were rude, obnoxious. Eh? They didn't know what direction we were going. And I look at the White Paper Act that Trudeau and Chrétien were trying to push for, and it woke us up. It woke us up because we have rights to our land. You look at the Robinson Huron Treaty, which is the North Shore of Manitoulin and Georgian Bay and Dokis and Nipissing and Wanapate. That's the Robinson Huron, and they got the Union of Ontario Indians got a hold of a wampum belt that Shingwauk gave to Penetanguishee. Before Penetanguishee could get back to London, England, he passed away, and they put all his stuff. So that belt came up for auction. So they wanted to know what was the belt all about. And I sat and listened. And they're trying to figure. They invited people who they thought could read that. So my understanding is there was an agreement, just like the Robinson Huron when we signed the treaty, our ancestors. And what was that agreement? And, and when they did research and everything, they found the commissioner's journals that were there, and they wrote there what was our interpretation of that. And we cannot sell the land. Eh? That's not in our philosophy and belief system, because who owns the land? Eh? Is the creator. But we are the stewards and custodians of the land. Eh? So when they did their research, we start to find out we got a case because the truth's on our side. We never sold it. We never surrendered anything. We just agreed eh, to certain things. So you look at where we are today. We're in a new time, and we have university colleges. We could teach our language and our culture in our schools, and we have that freedom again, and it's making us strong. And we're always going to be the Indian problem to the government, eh? But in reality, us Anishinaabe people, we understand our relationship to creation, and we are caretakers of the land. That we demand mining companies, eh, timber companies, that they look after the land, eh, that they take responsibilities if they do something out there that uh, hurts the land, the animals, the plant life. We want to make sure that the environmental studies are good. So a lot of our young people are looking for who they are, what they're about. So when we come into our next stage, the youth stage, the youth, hey, between 16 and 24, they're helpers that help them, teach them the humility, and that's their cousins, hey, their siblings. They have a relationship with them. And I remember when I was a youth, I hanged around with a lot of my cousins in a place called Murray Hill in Wacomican. And we went to school, we went down to Wiki, we would go and watch movies on Saturday, walked around town, and come all the way back home. And we had that relationship. We went hunting, we went camping, and we had a farm my uncle Alex had, and we always looked after that farm, the cows, the horses, the pigs, the chickens. It was a good family environment, and but there was still a lot of drinking, a lot of drinking within my parents, my grandparents, my uncles and aunties. They still drank a lot, and then you hear what has happened to them in residential school. What they learned over there, they brought it home. And when they brought it home, some of our young girls that came from residential school were having babies when they were 14, 15, 16 years old. Babies having babies. Has that changed now today? And we still have that. So in the youth stage, uh, they talk about courtship, but they also talk about abstinence. And they have a ceremony that they call the buffalo dance to encourage them, support them, that they will make it to the next stage and they will have children. They will have that. But in this stage, this is the time that they go looking. They go looking for things. So one of the things I went looking for was ceremonies, and it was in St. Charles. And I went with Jim when he went to here when they had that wild rice harvest. I went to him with him to Russo, Manitoba. I went with him to um, what you call it, just in Michigan there, Escanaba there. What's that reserve called? What? No, Baraga's more north. The one near Escanaba, Hannahville, and went there. And at Hannahville, I met an old man there, and his name was Peter O'Cheese. And sitting there and listening to him talk, okay, got my attention. Okay, what he was saying and what he was expressing, and it influenced me. And I couldn't believe how his voice was and how gentle it was, how comforting it was. And so learned a lot of things from him. Learned a lot of things from Eddie Benton. Learned a lot of things from Jim Dumont. Learned a lot of things from Kevin Ottertail, Andy White, Porky White, Jim Nelson. So I had a lot of mentors. So as a young man in those days, I started to rekindle the fire inside me, my passion and my compassion, my identity, my culture, my language, my history, eh? Not their history because, they doctrine history because in the Great Lakes, Champlain didn't discover the Great Lakes. We were already here. How can he discover something when he was shown this by us? We're not mentioned in there. Okay? And when Columbus came in to North America, he discovered North America. Okay? Meanwhile, he was in the Caribbeans. He was lost and confused. Okay? So they doctored history to suit their, when they came, that's when history started. But we were here for thousands and thousands of years. And we all had a relationship. Just like you call this place over there, Blating, the rapids. If you went out to a place called Peguis in Manitoba, the population in Peguis, the reserve, is 15,000. And they used to call themselves Sotos. And if you know what Soto means, it means from the rapids. So you look at our connection. You look where I live in Mississauga. You see New Credit, Alderville, Curve Lake. They call themselves Mississaugas because they came from the Mississauga deltas in the late 1700s, and they went to what is present day Mississauga, just outside of Fort York. You hear that history. You hear what inspires you, what makes you proud, and talks about our relationship to the land. You look at what Tree Fires is, Tree Fires Confederacy. There was at one time in the 1600s, they had the Tree Fires here in Sault Ste. Marie, Martin. They had the Ojibwe. And on the island, they used to call Manitoulin long time ago, Odawa Missing. And, and then you got Mackinac Island. That's where the Bowadimi was, or the Potawatomi. And you hear their migrations to different territories. So they're called the Tree Fires. But before they were called Tree Fires, they were fighting amongst themselves. Then a medicine man from the Mississaugas called them together in Mackinac. They had a meeting over there. And he presented them all with a feather. Okay? He gave the first feather to elder brother, the Ojibways. You are the keeper of our knowledge, the sacred scrolls. Okay? They're the teachers. Then he gave to one to middle brothers, the Odawas. You trade medicines and look for medicines. Okay? And we give you things, copper and everything, trade and bring all of what you traded there back. In the Buodami, you are the keeper of our fires, our sacred fires, our laws. And that's what he was told. And he gave them all a feather and he says, we are the tree fires. We are Anishinaabe. We speak the Anishinaabe language. Okay? So that's when the tree fires form to protect and come to unify together. So in this present time, like me, I look at me, myself now, I have in my leadership Ojibwe, but my mom side, the Manitowabis, are Odawas. But my great grandfather was a Buwadami from Shegwenda. So I have lots of leadership inside me. And when I look at it, I look at my parents, I look at my grandparents, I look at my great grandparents. I am the center. Then I look in front of me. I see my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren. That's the 7 generations. And I want my great grandchildren to feel safe and protected. I want them to be proud of their history and their culture and their language. And I do believe we will get there. But we have to find that determination, what makes us Anishinaabe, the uniqueness that we have in our teachings, in our ceremonies, so that we have that connection to whom there is no other. Gitchemanado, Gjemedo, Medemanado, whatever you want to call it. It's just like when we do the medicine wheel and we do our tobacco, we put our tobacco and we acknowledge the creator first. One of the things we say, ha gajemado, manda, sama, alginawo, dapnen manda. So we're asking him to pick up our offering. And my offering is that I have a good life, that my family is well and protected, that my community and my nation are safe, and that I think about all our brothers and sisters who live on the streets, who are homeless. I think about all our women that are in shelters. I think of all our children and families who are involved in child welfare. I think of all our men, our warriors who are in institutions. I think of all our people who are suffering with mental health. That's where my prayers and thoughts go. The ones that we have a pandemic now, we talk about COVID being in our communities, but we have a pandemic. In the North Shore, from Sudbury to Sault Ste. Marie, we have over 30 people died of overdose. Okay? And we haven't had no one died from COVID yet. We have a pandemic in our communities. We still have a lot of child welfare issues because children are being neglected. We're having youth committing suicide. We have lots of things with mental health. And it's us that have to do that work in our communities and for our families, for our future. If you ever see a child, a little spirit In 25 years, they'll say, where were you when I needed you? That's what influences me. Okay? And I think that influences all of us. Okay? Because we want to have a good life. Okay? We have the freedom to express ourselves. Okay? Yes, there's lots of obstacles in our path. Okay? But our culture, our ceremonies give us the strength to overcome those things. Have faith and trust in the spirit. I always talk to my ancestors, who are who I'm made of. Eh? Their DNA, the blood memory that runs through me is Midwawi, Bisne, Dabasge, eh? Babona. Eh? They're all running through me. In the future, my grandchildren, my blood will run through them. I will still be alive through them because I want them to be proud of who they are. I want them to be strong in who they are. So I have lots to offer my family, my extended family. You look at this youth stage, they call it the time of abstinence. And the Buffalo dance is about that abstinence. And they honor them. They honor them that don't rush to have babies. Experience. Look for things. Go to the ceremonies. Go find your path. Find your journey. Whether it's the sun dance, rain dance, Wabno, Medewan, or even Catholicism. There's nothing wrong with Catholicism. Yes, we have a history of them, but it wasn't the Bible. It was the people that were entrusted in that failed us. They were human beings. So here we are in this present time, and this place was developed for us to learn, to be educated. Instead, what did it do to us? It oppressed us. So now we see how important things are, especially our youth, the struggles that they have, especially right now with the drugs and alcohol. So when you do this ceremony, the buffalo dance of abstinence, and you talk about that, but it's also about courtship. A young man and a young woman, they come together. And there's nothing wrong with a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. We have nothing to say about uh, your sexual orientation. A lot of our two-spirited people play an integral part in what our community is all about. Because if my daughter, if she was gay, she's still my daughter. And I want nobody to hurt her or demean her. That's my son. I don't want anybody to demean him. They have their uniqueness, and everybody here has their uniqueness, and we're to respect that. And we cherish our children, and our youth. They go through a lot of things. They're looking for their relationship to the spirit, to their families, to their environment, and they're looking for teachers that they could trust, who would help and shed guidance on where they need to go in their life. So then, in the youth stage, when I was a young man, and probably after about 24 years old, I came with Jim, and we came to that harvest, and we heard um, Dan Pine coming out with that song, and he was talking about what he was referring to. Yes, that happened to us over there. Let's don't get stuck over there. Let's move on. Eh? Let's do our healing. Eh? Ambe majada. Hey, let's get up and go. Eh? So that's what he was referring to. And referring to that, we started to look at things. One of the things in the 70s, they had this thing going around. It was from Akwesasne. It was a college. I forget what it was called. And they went around and they did talk about you should smudge with sweetgrass. You should smudge with sage. And they were going around. You should get connected back. and they brought out a film called Alkali Lake. And so you start seeing the treatment centers, okay, to address that. And you start seeing different treatment centers, family treatment centers. Okay? We're in a healing time because of what our experience has done to us. We're all wounded from the oppression that we just experienced in the last 200 years. So when you look at the youth, we have to support them in a lot of ways. If you were to have, like when you go out and hear about them talking about the water, talking about the oil out west, and then they're the ones that are going out there, and they're advocating for the protection of the earth. And so you look at what our youth are getting. They're going to school. It's like going to school here. Yeah, there's a lot of demands here. You get stress, anxiety, even depression. And if you go so far into that, you could even eh, have thoughts of suicide. And that's how it plays on this mind. So Shingwauk eh, had a vision that we would learn and we would grow and evolve and prosperity would be there. But that didn't happen. What we saw was, eh, it almost destroyed us, eh? Destroyed our belief, our spirituality, our language, our customs, our rights. Eh? So I thank a lot of my former chiefs, eh, all over the Robinson Huron, for having visions and being our warriors today, because our war isn't out in the field; it's in the courts, and we have to support them and encourage them, eh, because they are thinking like our ancestors, 7 generations ahead. And we have to give our children the tools and the tools, eh, to be strong, eh, to advocate, eh, to sound their voice, eh, what is rightfully our right to be Anishinaabe in our homeland. You look at the youth, they're looking for the culture. They're looking for the songs. A couple of years ago, I was having a meeting with what are we going to do? We have powwows, we have welcoming ceremonies, everything. So what are we doing for the young people? And I'm sitting there and I said, let's have a round dance. And everybody said, yeah, okay. So we had our round dance. We had one in Sudbury and one here in Sault Ste. Marie. And a lot of young people came, all dancing around, enjoying themselves. Would cut in there once in a while. This is not doing, blah, blah, blah. Marketing. But one of the things is we had to look at what influences our young people. And you see, when you go to powwows, you see a lot of our young people want to dance. They like competition. They like to strut their stuff. I mean, I like going to traditional because I can just walk around. I don't have to dance. I look like I'm out there anyways. But you look at things in our development, returning back to our teachings, our culture, our language. And we now have programs where we have relationship to the land. And we ask a lot of our youth to participate and volunteer to help our children, our adolescents, in going out there. And the ones that volunteered, yeah, we had fun out there. Hey, we went fishing, ice fishing. We put our nets in the water and we cooked it, used a pole and pushed it, and we got our fishing line. We learned how to fillet the skin. We learned how to cook it, smoke it. Hey, we had fun. We connected. Because I tell you one thing, as an Anishinaabe person, if I went out to Young and Dundas in Toronto, I can't feel there. I'm out of my element. But when I go back in the bush behind Miss Sagi, I feel in my element. I feel the spirit. I feel alive. I could feel the wind on my skin, whether it's cold or warm. I could hear the birds singing. I could hear the trees. I could hear the water. eh. I'm in tune to that. I'm in rhythm with that. eh. So one of the things is my relationship to my mother, the earth. My relationship to my father, the sky. My relationship to my grandfather, the sun. My relationship to my grandmother, the moon. I could feel that and sense that. And I'm always reminded that. Like last night was the full moon. I went outside and watched it. Said my little thoughts towards her. To look after all our women. Eh, You look at now, at this time, Bon Mado is an old man ready to leave. And Sigwen Quest, a young woman coming here and bringing that new life again. And I can't wait. eh. I my friend in Muncie, and he said that at the river there's lots of eagles, and the first bird that comes up here and that comes from the south is the eagle. And I wonder why they were up there at in Muncie. Then I listened to the news in Texas. They had a freeze, so the eagles thought maybe it got messed up by that. Started coming up. Okay, the sea turtles were coming up on shoreline because of the cold weather in Texas. Okay, so there's something happening to the weather. Okay, so the eagles tell you that because they're the first ones here. After the eagles come here, you will notice the seagulls come right behind them. Then after them is those the geese. And after them is other ducks and all that. Then you call it guys the vulture. The one when we see the robin jumping around, that's when he says spring is here. But the ones that come up, you'll see them, they come in order. And they're telling us something. And we read into that. When we see the sky, we look at the sky, we read into that. And we looked at we knew a lot of our elders knew that this winter was going to be like this. It wouldn't get cold eh, till February. How did they know? Eh? So then one of the things is our youth are looking for all those things, and we're to teach them and mentor them how to go hunting. They're not always going to be successful, so they go back to their uncles and their uncles and fathers and say, "What do they do?" They correct them. You do it by learning. Eh? Sometimes you'll not succeed, but you will keep finding determination to do it. Just like the young girls, they have to kind of hide. They have to look at their creativity. If you ever go on Facebook, you see all the girls there. This is what I did. They show off their dresses they made, or their beadwork they done, or their quilt work. It's their creativity. Okay? How are they sharing their creativity with others? Okay? And all the guys are showing, oh, got a big fit. Oh, got a moose. You see that, because that has to do with their demeanor, what interests them, being a hunter, a provider, using their creativity. You see a lot of dancing and lots of cultural things. So we're going back there. Okay? So when you look at the youth stage, we want to keep influencing them from from our perspective, from our worldview, from our ceremonies. Okay? They are important to us. Okay? I never told you you're wrong, you're misguided. I never say that. One of the things are, how do you feel? Okay? Always ask them, how do you feel? Not what you think, what do you feel? Okay? That's always the right answer. So the youth finally leave to the next stage, and you find like it was me finding my partner. And I think about my partner. When I first met her, I worked in Sudbury at the government building. I was a parole officer, and she worked at Native Community Branch, and they were in the city center. And I would meet her every day for a whole month. Eh? And there's something about her. Then I looked at her, and I kept seeing her. Then my friend, he said, we're meeting with our bowling team. That's where I got to meet her. And I've been with her for 32 years now. And I knew she was the woman, eh, that inspired me, that connection. And she is my partner, and we both go to Medellin. We do have children, and and we look at our lives and how we shared and supported one another. Yes, every relationship has its difficult times, eh, but how to overcome those based on our culture and everything. I pledged to her that I would always stay with her and comfort her, make sure she's protected and safe, eh, and she would do the same for me. And and the work that we do and how we inspire each other and we feed off on that. She encourages me, supports me, and she's she's always been there for me. So when you look at your partner, you decide that you want to make a union, a marriage ceremony. So it's just like going to the lodge. The men come on this side, the woman comes on this side, in her family. So when the man comes, he picks up his pawagan. You know what a pawagan is, eh? A pipe, the bowl and the stem and what that all means. That's what he picks up. The next article is his fire making, his flint, his skitagan, eh? His moss, his striker. It's all in a bag. He picks that up. And he goes and he picks up eh? his drum. His tuigan. Then he picks up his shigan. And he goes at the door and he waits for her. So when she finally gets there, she's carrying so many things because she started picking all her articles. She started picking the medicines. She started picking uh, the creativity that she had, the socks, the clothing. She started picking up the water. She started picking up, and by the time she's carrying so much things. And they walk in and they go to the center and they put their articles down. And the man gets out there. He starts to get his fire ready, and he strikes that. And he has to make that fire the old-fashioned way. Eh? You could make use a big lighter or a match, but they want you to do the old-fashioned way because they tell you it takes skill to be a Anishinaabe man. And Anishinaabe man is a man of honor and respect. He's a man of diplomacy and courtesy. Eh? That's that's what that's all about. Him to do that. That he has the ability to light that fire and attend that fire, put his tobacco down, smudge, all those things preparing for that. And once he gets his fire going, then he brings out his pawagan. And his pawagan, his pipe, he offers the tobacco, acknowledging the spirit first, the creator, then the four directions, then Mother Dear. Then his tobacco goes to, I'm pledging to honor my partner. That's what he's doing. And he smokes it and he gives the woman he's going to marry a pipe. She smokes it. Once he's finished that, that's when the woman, eh, she gets her bundle and she has, you ever see those vases with the two holes on there? Eh? That's a marriage vase. And it's called that because she's going to pray and talk for that water. And what she's saying is this is the life giving force. Without it, there is no life. And I am the carrier of this water. Because she'll have that child. We're made of that water. She's made out of that water. And she talks for it. and she sings a song. Like there's many water songs. And the one that I like, the one that the water songs is Bida Jiwan, the ever flowing water in the sky world, the lake up there. And it comes down and nurtures all of us. It gives us that life. So I thirst for life. So when they sing that song, and after that, she offers me a drink, and I drink on it, and I return, give it back to her, and on the other one, she drinks. And that's the water ceremony for that unification, that marriage ceremony, that unification ceremony. Pledging that you're pledging that not only just to the creator, but the creation itself. You're making that. There's no divorce here, going to court, eh? You're pledging this to creation. So once that marriage ceremony is finished with the water, she then offers him food. She feeds him, gives him the berries, the wild rice, the corn. And if you look at wild rice and corn in the language, they almost sound the same. Eh? So when you look at those things, the meat, the fish, you're giving them the berries. And so she feeds him, and he feeds her after she's finished. And one of the things is that in this marriage ceremony is that you're going to help one another. I remember when I was a young boy, when I came back home to my mom, I was sitting at the table and she was folding clothes. She said, "What's wrong with you?" "I'm hungry." "You're hungry?" She says, "Oh, you're not at grandma's anymore. You're going to have to cook for yourself. There's a pot there. Put it on the stove, put water in here, put some salt. There's the macaroni over there. You're going to have to learn how to look after your own things. You're going to have to fold your clothes, even do your own laundry." And she says, "There's 13 of us here." So when she told me this, she says, "I know you were at grandma's and she did everything for you, but you're here now. You have to learn to look after your stuff. Okay? Look after your boys. Okay? Where you are. Put your stuff away." So when I look at my upbringing, and when my my partner laughs at me when I first start going out there, "You know how I used to fold my clothes? Don't forget where I came from. I was in the armed forces. I used to even roll up my socks. They're all in the cupboard there." Oh, she laughed and she opened the cupboard. "What is that? How come you do that?" "What's that?" "The socks are all rolled up and nice. Eh? The shirts are all folded and everything." I said, "Actually, before I went to the armed forces, I had to do this. My mom wanted me to put my clothes like that because I had to look after my own things. I learned to cook. I taught my partner, eh, how to cook." Because she was a career girl. She never, when she was go to work, she'd come home and she'd just get takeout or anything. I started to show her how to cook. That even today in present time, oh, when she cooks, I phone up the kids. "Hey, your mom's making lasagna. Oh, your mom's cooking a turkey. Oh, we had prime rib coming up." Eh? Phone her, and they all show up. Eh? Even though they're adults now, they just love her cooking. Eh? So she has became a real good cook. Eh? And a relationship takes a lot of work. It just doesn't happen. Eh? A relationship is always developing and growing. Eh? And that's what happened with mine. Um, Something happened to me 3 years ago. I I was at home and I felt like chill and I just want to go to sleep. And I went to sleep and it was middle of the summer. Next thing you know, I had about 3 blankets on top of me, just cold. My daughter said, "What's wrong with you? You better come to the hospital." So they took me to the hospital. And I had an ulcer that grew and I couldn't feel it because of uropathy. Eh? So I would wash it, but I wouldn't look at it to see if anything was wrong. Then I got an infection and I lost my leg. The day before I lost my leg, my mom, my sister and brothers were in the room, and my partner. And I said, this is my own doing because I did not own my disease of diabetes. And one of the things, if you own what ails you, eh, you'll be able to look after yourself. So I had to take responsibility. So when they took me off and I came out with my foot gone, I heard something. And it was children in the hospital. I looked around to make sure that they don't think I'm crazy or anything. But I could hear them singing. And the song they were singing, Awinamago ni kanes, Awinamago ni kanes, Jean Winamago ni kanes. And I was wondering why they were singing that. And the song is really talking about how the Spirit comforts me. Okay? Not pities me. The Spirit always comforts you. And when my mom told me that, I just burst out crying. Okay? Because I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I was feeling, I'm still alive. I get to witness things and see things and experience things still. I don't feel sorry for myself. Sure, I'll get over this. Yeah. So one of the things is when I heard those children singing, I wonder why they were singing to me. And I kept listening. And I look at our children. We have lots of mental health with our children in child welfare. They have ADHD, FAS, bipolar, all these things. And it's hard to find homes for them, foster homes, because you got to have skills and everything to look after these special needs kids. And I cried for them. And I put my tobacco, and I smoked my pipe for them, that the Spirit will comfort them, just like I was comforted. How can I comfort them? Okay? Okay? So you look at all those things now. You look at the work that we do. Ashkabe was ukichitakwe. Ashkabe was the man ukichitakwe because of your brave heart that you give up of your heart. Okay? So you look at those the work that we do, okay? And how our communities are growing again. Okay? But we got a lot of things we have to clean up. Just like me, I had to clean up. I had to clean up my resentments, my anger, okay? My jealousies and insecurities. I had to clean that up. They're they're probably still there because they're memories. I will never get rid of them. I have good memories now. Okay? I can't wait till 1 month from now. My daughter will have a baby. I can't wait. Gonna be the longest slow months waiting for that little one, that spirit. Okay? I cannot wait, okay, for things to happen in my community. That we address the drug addictions that are plaguing our communities. I cannot wait, okay, that we don't have child welfare in our communities. I cannot wait when domestic violence has stopped. I cannot wait. But I play my part. You will not see me hurting my daughter, my granddaughter, my grandson. You will not see me hurting my wife. And something taught me this. My aunties, my mom, the sacredness of women, that their voice has to be strong. And I support all our women, encourage. I know a lot of young men who share my feelings, my insight about the sacredness of women. Not all men. But a lot of our young men are starting to go there. Okay? They understand what that's about, and we have to keep sending that out. So, as a young man, and my partner and I, we have children. Uh, I support my kids. I teach my kids. I did their laundry. Okay? I cook for them. And who said that was a man's job? And we kind of laugh. In my house, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Everybody's up ahead of me. And I don't mind. I love it. Because I make sure my partner's happy. My children are happy. My grandchildren are happy. Okay? I'm supporting all that, their happiness, and make sure that that is happening. So me and my partner now, we're at a place where we're entering the doorway of elderhood. And I'm recognized as an elder. I didn't want to accept that. Okay? So when somebody says, Mike, you're an elder, oh, that didn't make me feel. I like to be called uncle, not the elder. Okay? And Charlie Nelson and Edna one time, and my Auntie Liza, they told me, it's time for you to accept that. You earned that. Okay? So the community recognizes that where I come from, that I'm an elder, even though my humility, uh, I'm not an elder. Go see Garden One events. And, so that has to do with that humility. But I finally accepted it, and and the community decided that, okay, where I come from, where I live, and that's that relationship of the knowledge I gathered in my time. I gathered all kinds of ceremonies and songs in my time that I all that knowledge, that I have takes wisdom to use it in a good way. That's what I learned, and it's my spirit that learned that, and my spirit that experienced it. When I go home to my extended family over there in Wiki, they have a Medewan Lodge, Willie Trudeau, my cousin. And then I got my other relatives, the chief, Duke, and, and I got my cousins are all sitting in there, my sisters, my brother. We're all part of that lodge, and we have good times. And but me, I don't say anything anymore. I just sit in the back. Sometimes they have to wake me up. Uh, but you know, I've been there for almost 40 years in the Medewan Lodge, and I took my time. I didn't rush to be fifth or sixth degree Medewan. I took my time. I wanted to absorb and learn things. One of the things I learned is what it means to be Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe and Nene. I had to learn my relationships, just like the story about being an infant, the relationship with my mom. I love my mom. I got nothing against my mom. She only raised me. She didn't raise me for 9 years. I was in care, but I still love her because she supported me. Okay? She encouraged me. I love my I love my dad. Okay? I love my grandparents, and I sure love my uncles and aunties. They were always kind and supportive and encouraging to me. I love my cousins, my nietas. Okay? There's one right there. Okay? So we have relatives. That's why when we say in the way am I gonna do, all my relations. And I have a relationship with my extended family because in Sagmuck I have my auntie Sarah Nushkakian and all her family. Those are my relatives. All the Stony Points from my the Bosque side in Chigin. I got family in Serpent River from my grandfather's side, my dad's side. I ain't got relatives in Chiging, Shegwinda, Tucker Creek, and nearly everybody in Wiki is related to me. Okay? I have relatives over here because they came to school here. It's spelled Besaw, Bisson. Okay? A lot of them are married to people in Batchewana, Obajawan, Garden River. Okay? I'm relative to everyone here. So I find that very important that I always say, that in the way I'm gonna look, I relate to everyone. We all come from the same grandparents, maybe 100 years, maybe 200, maybe 1,000 years, but we all come from the same family and should be treated as family, one another. Even my mom driving in Navajo, and she's driving, sitting in the back there. Anishinaabe. I looked at what Navajo was. Those are Navajo. Anishinaabe to me, she said. So you look at us as Anishinaabe people. We've always been a kind person. Okay? We always had that kindness. That's one of our strengths, being kind. Courtesy, diplomacy, welcoming. We talked about that one time. In my community in Chiging and Wiki, they used to have this thing after Christmas called Bojoling, You go, oh, Bojo, and they'd give your kids an apple or orange or candy, and the older ones would take a little shot of spirit, So they used to do this a lot, and they were showing gratitude. They'd have big meals, big smorgasbord there with the different houses. And that's what we were showing, is that gratitude, that appreciation. Now we have All Souls Day. And that's when they do a memorial for your family that went to the spirit world, so they put out food for them. I laughed at my brother Clarence one time. He was offering a drink to my grandfather, my uncles. He was sitting there and he was going, "Here's to your grandfather. You're going to be drunk by the time you finish." But he says, "I have to do it. I have to offer it. It's for them." But he only took a little bit. He didn't get drunk, but he did that offering for them. But one of the things is, as an elder, I wonder what that really encompasses, what it means. And one of the things is, I have experienced a lot of things, and I have attained a lot of knowledge. And I hope that that knowledge has gotten me to a place where I'm wise to use that in a good way, a constructive way, for inspiring our communities, our families, our leaders, our programs. Okay? So one of the things is, finally it happens. It's time for my spirit to leave this body. Okay? And as my spirit leaves the body, that spirit, Shkabe, is there. They call him Nigabi Nang Mido. Nigabe, up ahead, the one who's standing up ahead, star. So that spirit is called Shkabe. And when your spirit leaves your body, he comforts you. Okay? And they are preparing things for you. They put up a sacred fire when you pass away. And they give you your last cedar bath. Okay? And then they put you in your finest, wrap you up. Okay? So long time ago, they wrap you in a nice blanket, put birch bark, put you in the ground, and they put a spirit house on top of you. And after 1 year, they would put food out there, because what happens is they put a little hole in the spirit house. It's called the spirit. Some people say they do that in the casket or the birch bark, put that hole there. or put holes in your moccasins. And what that's representing is, remember we're talking about the Tikanagan, that board in front of that hole, and spider looking forward. You're going to meet all these things. That hole is looking back. How did you walk your moccasin trail? How did you live? Okay? Means how did you treat your family? How did you treat the earth? How did you treat the animals? Okay? Let's talk about how did you walk this life. And you tell them. Then you will notice that there's a sacred fire. And they say at the sacred fire, the person who's in spirit is over there, watching people offer their tobacco, encouraging, supporting to go on to the spirit world. And at the inside, you have that person always facing their head west, always west. And that's where they do the teaching about going to the spirit world. And there's all different stories there. The midday one has theirs where they put their tobacco here, 4 tobaccos on your finger. Because the first tobacco, when you go there, is about this, giving it back to the earth, to your mother. Then you go through that doorway. And as you're walking, you come to a fork in the road. And you have faith in your tobacco, you put it down, and the spirit will show you which way to go, this way or that way. If you go this way, you come, and you could hear them coming. And it's dogs, vicious dogs. And a fear comes over you. Then you put your tobacco down. If you have faith and belief in your tobacco through this whole time that you live, you will know how to do that. Then you come to a river and you see it's all wavy, and on the other side it's your ancestors. You put your tobacco, you have faith and believe in it, it stops and you walk across, and they greet you, and they take you to the council fire. At the council fire, they let you go forward ahead, okay? And that's where at the council fire, he stands up and he asks you, how was your journey? You're back where you started from at the beginning with the Creator. Okay? So it's just like you went in one big circle and you're back to the Creator. So the Spirit has sent us here to experience this. We are spirits and experience this place. Who knows? Outside might just be a dream of the Creator. Okay? And we're that dream, okay? To experience this most beautiful place. Okay? For our spirit to gather the knowledge, to hear, to see, to smell, to taste. Okay? All these gifts were given to experience this most beautiful time, this most beautiful place. And everything in creation helps us. Okay? So we got lots of things to be thankful for. That's why we are very thankful people. Miigwech. And some people say, it's not Chimigwech. That puts more emphasis of how sincerely thankful that you are. So here as an Anishinaabe people, okay, we have a relationship. And our first relationship is the Creator, the guardians that watch over us for direction. Our mother, the earth, who gives us of herself, because we eat wheat, corn, porridge. Okay? We eat animals who eat from the earth. Okay? So we're thankful for that. We show that appreciation. That's why we do a spirit plate to all spirit, to our family in the spirit world that we're thinking of them. Right? So we're always showing that acknowledgement, that thankful. Remember I was talking about the other road? And when you came to the forks in the road, where do you think the other one goes? If you were to take that one down, you go and you come to a lake, and there's a man standing there in a canoe. And you get in, and he takes you to the island. The Creator is a kind and loving spirit. If you did not live a good life here, He gives you a chance, eh, to redeem yourself. It's called a wandering spirit world. And you go there and you meditate and you ponder. And someday you will go to the spirit world. When we do a plate offering, eh, who's it for? It's for those ones that are stuck in the, eh, who took their lives, took someone's life. Eh, somebody who was not nice, kind, somebody who was stuck in the darkness of things. So he goes there. So that food offering, when we do that ceremony for them. It's a spirit plate for them. That we're thinking of them, that we hope that they make it to the spirit again. Okay? Because of that kindness that our spirit, that the spirit of all has for us. Some of us were born into a family of trauma. Okay? Some of us experience that. Some of us experience the residential school, even though we never went, but we're experiencing the trauma because we learned that from our parents. The silent treatment, the arrogance, the rudeness, the obnoxiousness, the inappropriate humor. Some of us learn not to talk about our feelings, bottle it up. Some of us learn to be oppressive, and some of us allow that to continue. So we learned a lot of things. So by the time we start collecting all this, that's why we're in the situation that we're in. We have lots of people who are struggling with addictions. We're having lots of people who are being abused and living in that abuse. We have a lot of people, even our elders, are being abused now. Where family members are taking their medication, taking their bank card, elder abuse. That is not our way. That is not who we are. But yet we have this in our community. And we're the ones that have to clean that up. And it will take some time. It took us 7 generations to get into this predicament. It took us 7 generations to get out of it. But we play our role and responsibilities. So when you look at the 7 stages at the infant, you're looking at your mother. She gives you the grandfather teaching love. You have the naming ceremony. You have the placenta ceremony for the father, and that mother puts away the umbilical cord. It's about the tikanaga. The next stage, you see the toddler has a relationship with his father and mannerism, how he says, pass the sugar, pass the salt. Hey, quitna, listening manda. Hey, showing that soft, gentle side of himself to his child and making that relationship. And the Mogson ceremony, how he feels of belonging in that family, grounded in who he is. Can you imagine if you went through these things? They say kids that were put in a tikanagan can remember that. Kids who did the Mogson ceremony can remember that. Because their spirit is pure. Your relationship with your grandparents in your childhood. You remember how kind your grandmother was when she bought you soup. It's gone. And she put a smile on her face. How did that make you feel? You loved that. Your grandfather carving there for you. Your granddaughter, your grandson. How does that make you feel? So we feel that. My relationship with my uncles and aunties are good ones. I listen to them. I would tell my uncles and aunties things I wouldn't even tell my own parents because I trust in them, because they encourage me. And they finally say, you should tell your parents this. They won't tell on me, but they say, this is up to you. You make the choice. So I had good upbringing when I started to go back home to my uncles and my aunties. They taught me a lot about my heritage, a lot of my history. And then I have my cousins who I grew up with, went to school with. I lived in a place called Murray Hill in Okamaka. Everybody in Murray Hill is my relative. All the different families were all from the same great grandfather. The Georges, the Mishiban Ishmas, and the Mantuabis, and some of the Pangushes, Nakohishiks. Hearing those relationships. And I look at, I'm gifted. I have a lot of things to be grateful for. And I look at my partner. I look at my my grandparents, all my relations. And that's why they say Nikavana at the end, all my relations in creation, everything I'm related to. And I look at that. I'm proud. I come from, I say many places. Chiging. It's actually Med Chigi. It's talking about there's a bluffs there, and you go up the sky where you could see the fish spear from the bluffs. They call it cup and saucer, but you could see that's what it really means with Chigi. I come from Wakwamkong, which talks about the white bluffs, doesn't say the Bay of the Beavers. Okay. Then I look at where I live now, Misagi, and Misagi, islands at the foot of the river. And you look at different places, and all the rivers have their own character, their own personalities. You look at, you ever hear a place called Amjuan? Sassarnia. And where the bridge is there, the water comes down, then it comes back up. That's Amjuan, okay? You look at little current, Web June, okay? Little currents, you can see them in the water when they're standing there, you can see those little currents going by. It never freezes there all year long, okay? So you hear these names. So everybody here has a name, a spirit's name. Mine is Nigani. It's a good name because I go ahead and it's a good name. It gets me doing things. But it got me in a lot of trouble because I go ahead and do things. That comes with the name. And everybody has a very unique name. Okay? And it's to carry them in this time. It's just like, you guys ever hear of Wabagishik? That name, the one who got that is Wab, is I, eh? Gishik, sky, eye in the sky. That comes from, it's cloudy outside and you see a ray coming through, ray of light of the sun. That's Wabagishik. And when you see that, you say, oh, that's what that is. Okay? How much time do I got?
We got 20 minutes. We can take some time for questions if you want.
Yeah, okay. So remember I did that song, eh? And I lots of songs. When you are singing a song, it's just like when you're saying that, what is it that you ask of me? You're saying it 4 times. Then you go, Hawin the mo, eh? You're saying that we all know what you're asking. They sing that song, eh? It's more like a dance song, I guess. That you're happy, you show that enthusiasm, eh? A lot of us, if somebody asks you something, so how do you feel today? How do you feel? I feel good. It's wonderful today, eh? Where'd you come from? Over there. I come from Okomokong, eh? And, and one of the things is having enthusiasm, feeling good about you, who you are, and what you're about, and expressing ourselves again. So you look at a lot of things that we have been connected back to again. Just like this place here is, you come to learn here. You come to learn about our culture, our worldview in this present modern time. And that one time, our ancestors, hey, can you believe this? They could travel. Like right now, I just dial in my mind. I'm going to Wakamakong. I'm going to go visit my brother, and I just think of him. I visit with him. And today we got cell phones. And so we look at the spirit, and the spirit will always guide us. There's so many stories. I only told you some of the things. There's other ways of looking at things. It's just like um, if you're a Medewan and you go to the spirit world, it takes you a whole year to get to that lodge, the sky world in the Medewan. And only Medewan could go there, they say, because you pledge yourself to that lodge and you live there and did the work in there. And so, me being Medewan, and I had lots of help. I had lots of encouragement, support, and, and I want to give that to our children. That's why I went to work for Nogdawiniman to arouse the spirit and to give Nogdawiniman a spirit, and and trying to encourage them and support them, because I tell you, coloniums are very strong, and so I have to and keep our prayers, our ceremonies strong, so that we can get where we need to get, and that is to live and experience this most beautiful place, most beautiful time. So, any questions?
Thank you so much, Mike, for that sharing, that story. I think one thing that I felt as you spoke was like this feeling of so many connections to other stories that I've heard, but also just this feeling of how important this moment is. This was the first time that we've actually invited people outside the staff into the building. And so, your story that you just told about the spirit's journey, and I know there's so many other things too, right? I was thinking, oh man, how lucky I've been to hear so many different people speak about these things that you shared. And, it's just kind of like this brief summary of days, weeks, months of story, years, and then thinking about you living it, for all these years, and just respect that I have for your journey, and the admiration, that to want to be where you are one day, if God willing, I guess, or Creator willing. So thank you on behalf of Shingwauk, on behalf of SASA, the students, and just creating that energy in this place, and guiding us and showing us that way. Thank you, Miigwech, Chimigwech. So maybe if nobody has questions, I know sometimes that when we say, oh, do you have questions, and nobody says anything right away. There is no chat box in the Zoom right now, so maybe people, if you don't have questions, you can say what you felt. I think that would be really um, key in this moment. And if anybody in the circle here wants to share what they felt at any point throughout Mike's sharing, I'll go to you, and you can share too. So if there's anybody out there in the Zoom world who wants to either ask a question or share how they feel, you have to go off mute. and share in that way. Miigwech.
Miigwech. I just wanted to say miigwech. That was awesome. Miigwech.
Yep, I'm on here too. This is Michelle from Madison, Wisconsin, and I was really taken by your reminder to think really carefully about the resentments and things that you carry with you, and to take responsibility for those things. I'm wondering if you have guidance on how to do that, some ways to do that are more effective than others.
I think one of the things is I have lots of friends that do sweat lodges, eh? And when we go in there, they say whatever stays in there, stays in there. So I have faith in when I go in there that somebody's going to help me and bring it up. So I go in there for support, encouragement. And I always get to sweat lodge, even a pipe ceremony, even when I go to, they have in Southern Ontario right now in Armstrong, Wapo Island, and Kettle Point, they're getting ready for the Sundance. And now a lot of that is about their prayers, the talks, and what they're asking the Spirit. And you find that by doing more prayers, how you send your prayers to everyone, not only just us, but other, Jaganash and other people. And we show that kindness and that, and because of the things we're going through right now, and the divisions, the COVID, and all the things that are happening out the world. And my prayers and thoughts are always me that's saying it. So one of the things is when I look at doing that all the time, it helps me. And I do believe the Creator hears my prayers, hears my thoughts, my requests, my petition, and always gives me an answer. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. But now, present time, I see them all the time now. And one of the things I say prayers for our families that are struggling, who lost a family member in their grieving, and help them and support them. And been doing that for since Christmas. Since I retired, I've been doing a lot of that, helping with families that lost members.
I seen a hand there from maybe Rachel or Angela.
Okay, sorry. Bonjour, Indigenous cause, Name and Dodam, Kanapajimi Donchua. I just want to say Chimigwech, Mike, for your teachings and your story today, because I'm often finding myself listening as well, just as a young person, or I'm not a young person, but when I was a young person, I was in foster care too, and it was a result of 60 Scoop, and like your story really resonated in terms of like a home that's supposed to be safe, was supposed to keep me safe from the situation that I was taken from. Yet my sisters and I experienced a lot of things in that home that weren't really well, but through listening and through being connected, I'm sure from the prayers of my parents and our family here in Canada, that it guided, at least it guided all of us. But in particular, when I think about myself, it guided me on my spirit journey to where I am today. And something that you said was really resonated with me. And it was, had to do with the umbilical cord, because I too really wanted to break cycles and become stronger for our generations coming forward. And I figured I made the commitment that when I had my children, I was talking to my biological father, who's now passed away, that I would give my kids their spirit names. I would take care of their placenta. I would make sure their umbilical cords, that they did their bury fast. And one thing that I did unintentionally was not bury their umbilical cord through that walking out ceremony. And I think that I made a connection with my oldest daughter, my teenager, and that some of the struggles that she might be experiencing is because she's not grounded in that way. So I just want to say miigwech to that. And the other thing is, when you talk about diplomacy, that really resonated with me because I'm like Migo Apane, Algoma University, and Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig. And also too, I'm really happy for being at school here and learning, but also as a student leader and a leader in my own way, in my own community, that diplomacy I've come to understand is extremely important. And I'm thankful for leaders like Chief Dean Sayers, and I'm thankful for leaders around that table at Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig who have really embraced that self-governing and that diplomacy that's really helped me and guided me through a really like hard struggle when I first became president of SASA. So I just want to say miigwech to that, and miigwech to Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig, miigwech Dr. Judge for having this today, and just thank you for the opportunity to be able to listen and learn so much more. Miigwech.
So I've seen a couple others that might have questions. Irene, did you have your hand up?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering. I noticed you're recording this. Are we gonna be able to access the recording or have it somewhere?
So yes, Irene, this will be provided to you on the Shingwauk website, and that's why it's so important for everybody who registered for this event. Please just consent that we can send you emails again. That was what I sent that other email, so that you can continue to receive all the things that are going to happen. There's going to be lots more coming up, and hopefully, Mike, we can have you back too at some point. We'll talk about that. Actually, I have a gift for you. But Rachel, did you have a question?
Just going to quit this because mine gonna know them. Anishinaabe Quailin will not be endowed. This can see being the teaching reminded me of a lot, my grandfather, especially, who I never seen drink. And so he was my first teacher and living that sober life. And I've never ever seen my grandpa drunk. And so I decided to sober up, and it's then when just before I had that spiritual connection there after my grandfather died, and I went to the Midewin Lodge when I first quit drinking and learning all of this, and I'd say chimigwech to that lodge and the teachers that taught you, and I'd say chimigwech to you for sharing that. And I know this Zoom is different, and I know that we got to be careful on what's being said and stuff. And so I really enjoy this. I really like this, and would also like to hear the recording as well. That'd be great. And I'd say chimigwech to everyone for listening and for joining. And I look forward to more teachings, and just like to say chimigwech. Yeah.
Miigwech. Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate you sharing all those kind words. And yeah, definitely just consent to us using your email address, and we'll add you in a list, and then everything coming up we'll share. We didn't want to just take it off the Eventbrite, so just make sure you go into that link. Yeah. And Dan, and then Michael. Michael's been waiting.
Bonjour, Mike. Good to hear you again. Good to hear your voice. Good to see you again. What you had to share was very inspiring as always. I always enjoy hearing your spirit, your own personal spirit's journey, and always am grateful for the kindness and the wisdom that you share. I think it's just amazing that you're at Algoma University in Shingwauk there, where our children were once sent, against their wills, against their families' wills, for residential school, including my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, and so it's so inspiring to hear these beautiful teachings being shared within that space that healing is taking place. So again, just to say chimigwech for sharing, and I miss you. Good to see your long hair again. So chimigwech. It's all good.
Okay, so I think that's it. Just a couple of things. So Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If anybody is wondering, I traveled to you to bring you tobacco before today. So I know we didn't do that here in this talk, but that protocol was done. And I just gave Mike a little gift of some maple syrup. As Michael was saying, he's donating some spiles. We will be tapping here, and I look really forward to that so that we can give the elders and the community member students our maple syrup that we do. We're still looking for dry wood. So I'm gonna just leave my email address. If anybody has dry wood, actually, I don't even know if there's a chat box. Well, you could find me. It's in the email I sent. So, but we're still looking for dry wood. We're looking for volunteers to help us out in the tapping, and we'll probably start around March 19th. That's what my teacher told me, and that's what the weather looks like. So it's pretty crazy right now. I haven't seen rain in February, so it's pouring rain outside right now. I've never seen that before. Big winds coming. So everybody take good care. Thank you so much for joining us at Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig for our Genesis event. I wish everybody the absolute best. Dean, Chief Sayers, did you want to say one more thing?
I'm okay. Miigwech, everybody. Thank you all. Kinewea. Good to see all those familiar, happy, beautiful Anishinaabe out there. It's nice to see you all. Miigwech, and we'll see you on the trail. Mama Pi Guamin.
Pama Pi.
Pama Pi.
Miigwech, everybody. Take good care.
Miigwech. Miigwech, Pama.
Miigwech.